to the Sanctity of Life edition of Focal Point and AFR Talk, focusing over the last couple of days in conjunction with the March for Life on the Sanctity of Life issue. You know, it's interesting. I read an article today about the way in which the mainstream media censors their coverage of the March for Life. This was a piece in Life News, I believe, and it profiled the major networks and their coverage of the March for Life and how many of them simply do not use the word life. Out of 24 mainstream media event coverages, media stories on the March for Life, only 2 of them even used the word life. Now, what that tells us very clearly, they may use all kinds of euphemisms, but what that clearly tells us is when we use the term life, when we refer to ourselves as pro-life, that is an effective terminology to use. The mainstream media does not like it, or the mainstream media does not like it, because they understand if that term is accepted, if it's circulated, if it's used, if it gets into the minds of people, that this is about life, and therefore those who are for abortion are really on the side of death. They know that it's fatal to their effort to normalize and protect the institution of abortion. I'm honored to welcome to our decision maker line Georgette Forney. She is the president of Anglicans for Life, and she's the co-founder of the Silent No More Awareness Campaign. Georgette, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher.
It's great to be with you all. I'm here on First Street, and it's in front of the Supreme Court building with about 500 of my best friends, 500,000 of my best friends. This place is packed.
Well, we can hear in the background, Georgette, what's going on. And we talked to Jeff Reed a little bit earlier, whose wife is one of the speakers there. So tell us again what's going on there on the steps of the Supreme Court as you and I are talking.
Well, I've got about 112 women and men, and about 70 of them are giving testimony, and we're sharing the story of what happened to us when we had abortions and how the abortion affected our lives immediately, as well as long-term consequences. I've heard multiple women talk about the fact that they ended up quitting college and they had the abortion so that they would be able to get their degree, and everybody told them that that was the best thing to do. But, you know, so we stand up and we share the truth, and so that's what we're doing here. We started about an hour ago, and we've gone through a number, and we've got a lot more women to go through still. We've got a lot of stories to tell, and your listeners can actually view our stories, read our stories, watch them on our website, silentnomoreawareness.org.
silentnomoreawareness.org. And Georgette, talk to us a little bit. Why don't you walk us through your own experience, how your own experience led you to become involved and to be a co-founder of this Silent No More campaign?
Well, I was 16 years old when I had an abortion because I was the good girl in the family, the little girl that didn't want anybody to know that I was sexually active. So in order to cover one lie, I did something awful, and I had an abortion. It was 1976, and everybody told me it was the simple thing to do, and it would take care of my problem. And I remember driving to the clinic and thinking, this feels wrong, but it's legal, so it should be okay. And I went through the procedure and just kept crying, and yet I was relieved. And the next morning, I spent the night at my sister's, and I went the next morning to back home. And as I was getting ready to go home, I was afraid of how I was going to explain to my mom why I was upset. So I got this idea that I could pretend the day before never happened, and that's really what I did for 19 years. It's called denial. And I lived that way for 19 years. And one day I was kind of shocked out of denial by an encounter, and I don't know how to explain it, but I felt the presence of my child with me. And I knew it was the child I had aborted. And I was able to find healing and forgiveness. And my pastor asked me to tell my story, and I thought, at our church service, and I thought that was a really dumb idea. And I said no, but I did. And I was shocked by the number of people that also had the same story and came up to me and talked about their pain and the fact that they had never talked about it. And that started the beginning of this. And as I I got involved. I went to work for the Anglicans for Life organization, and as I got involved, I saw so many women that were involved in the pro-life community, but that were hurting, and they didn't know help was available. So, we decided to start standing up and speaking out, and we realized more and more women wanted to come and join us. And I came here to the Supreme Court in 2001, 2002, and I held a sign that said, "I regret choosing abortion." And it was during the pro-abort candlelight rally that they usually have here after all of us leave. And nobody from the pro-abort group cared a single bit about what I had to say after I had my abortion. And that really made me mad. And so the next year I worked with Peace for Life, and we started Silent No More awareness campaign. And that was 10 years ago today. And we're still doing it.
Now, Georgette,
and every year we have new women come out and share their stories, and it's very empowering when you can stand up here in front of the Supreme Court and you can say, what you guys legalized hurt me, but I've been forgiven, and I'm going to be silent no more about this awful evil.
Yeah, I'm looking at Psalm 32:3 as we're talking here, where David says, when I kept silent, basically when I kept silent about my sin, my bones wasted away. In other words, there's an internal process that goes on inside us that affects our physical health and our emotional health and our mental health when we conceal a sin, when we've done something we know is wrong, but we keep silent about it. So talk to us just a little bit about what some of the consequences are physically, emotionally, spiritually for a woman who maintains a silence about her own sin of abortion.
I'm sorry, I missed the question. There's a ton of people coming at me.
I understand. Well, talk to us. What I was asking you, Georgette, about is what the consequences are in the life of a woman who keeps silent about her abortion, doesn't bring it out into the open, doesn't talk about it, doesn't acknowledge it. What are the consequences for a woman who does that?
Well, if I heard the question correctly, you're asking what are the consequences for a woman who doesn't acknowledge her pain?
Yes.
She's living in a sense of denial, or she's living, working really hard to keep the mask on. There's sometimes a joke about the fact that we all wear masks. Well, when you're dealing with women who are hurting, we wear masks, and we pretend real well that we're fine. And, there's almost a joke where you kind of walk around and say, I'm fine, hoping that one day you'll believe it. And the reality is that you're welcome to be fine, but if you ever come to a place where you're not fine and you want help, we're here for you. We're not here to make anybody feel guilty, but if you come to the place where you do recognize that you need help. I was fine for 19 years, but one day when I wasn't fine, it was nice to know that help was available. And that's the message we really want to make sure all of your listeners get. They can go to abortionforgiveness.org and connect to a database that you put in your zip code, and you find all the information you need on where the healing programs are in your area.
So one last thing, Georgette, we'll let you get back to the important event that you've got going on there at the steps of the Supreme Court building. But if you had just 60 seconds to speak to a woman who's listening to us right now, has had an abortion in the past, and has remained silent about that to this day, what would you say to her?
I can relate to you being silent. I understand why you'd want to stay silent. It feels weird to start talking about something that, people don't really think is, everybody agrees it's not a good thing, and you hear everybody talking around it. And many of their messages really kind of reinforce that we shouldn't talk about this, but we're set free when we do talk about it. There's the saying in Scripture that the truth sets you free. And when we stand up here and we speak the truth about what really happened to us and what really happened in the abortion procedure, we are set free and we're empowered to become the women God created us to be. And we want you to join us. We want you to know help is available. Abortion forgiveness is available for all of us.
Our guest has been Georgette Forney. She's the president of Anglicans for Life, and she is the co-founder of the Silent No More Awareness Campaign. You can find more information about their work at silentnomореawareness.org. And Georgette, I know you're very busy there. A lot happening there with the March for Life. You're doing God's work there on the steps at the Supreme Court. And thank you for stepping away just for a few moments to chat with us, and God bless you and your work.
Thank you for having me on. God bless you guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Georgette Forney, president of Anglicans for Life and the co-founder of the Silent No More awareness campaign. You know, we've talked about that frequently on this program. There's a ministry that AFA works closely with called Surrendering the Secret, which is really exactly the same kind of idea. Here's a secret that women can conceal, they can keep, they can bottle up this event from their past, which has enormous consequences for them physically, emotionally, spiritually. And then the time comes when God just begins to work on you and say, look, it's time to surrender this secret. It's time to give this up. It's time to bring this dark secret out of my past and bring it out into the open in a place where I can get some understanding, where I can get some help, where I can receive some counseling, where I can receive some prayer. And that's what the Silent No More Awareness program is really all about, encouraging women. And, you know, the information indicates that maybe 1 out of every 3 women in America, and this includes a lot of women in our evangelical churches, do have an abortion in their past. Many of them have kept that secret bottled up, and maybe those that are listening to us, maybe this would be an opportunity, maybe the impetus that they need to get some help with that. Bring that out into the open where God then can deal with it, can release his forgiveness, his restoration, and put you on a pathway toward life-affirming decisions. And I'm reminded as we're talking here about the issue of the sanctity of life, about Mother Teresa. She was a guest at the National Prayer Breakfast with Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton there in attendance in 1994. And here is what Mother Teresa said about abortion in her day. The greatest destroyer of peace today is abortion. It is a war against the child, a direct killing of the innocent, murder by the mother herself. If we accept that a mother can kill even her own child, how can we tell other people not to kill? Any country that accepts abortion is not teaching its people to love, but to use violence. And she had the courage and the boldness to say that directly to President Bill Clinton, who prior to Barack Obama was the most pro-abortion president we've ever had. You're listening to Focal Point AFR Talk. We'll take your phone calls in the last segment, 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. Back after these brief messages.